Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 2 of the Ultimate Cargasm. I'm Mike, the Automotive Junkie, your host, and today with me is John, JG Whips.
Hey, guys.
My brother, so it's kind of cool to have you on the show and get to know you a little bit better. I mean, obviously I know you, but it's good for everybody else to get to know you. And I'm sure I'll learn a little bit about your car journey. I mean, I know some of what you've been through in the past with cars, but also some of your dream cars and a little bit of that. And then we'll get to the Ultimate Cargasm car at the end of the show. So save that one.
Okay.
Don't reveal that too early. Let's hold off on that. But let's get to know you a little bit. Tell everybody a little bit about what you do for work, a little bit about your family, and if you have any other hobbies other than being in the cars. I know, like when I talked to Jeff, we talked a little bit about watches.
Yeah.
I know you just got one recently, so maybe whatever you want to share.
Well, great. So again, I'm John and Michael's brother, into cars. As far as life goes, I've been in the financial services industry for about 20 years. Supporting sales with proposals is primarily what I've spent my time doing. As far as family, I have 2 teenage daughters, which is why I have all this gray in my beard. But they're beautiful young girls, and they're grown up to be amazing young ladies. I'm married and have been to my high school sweetheart. And as far as hobbies go, those of you who might see me on Instagram know that I am a big craft beer fanatic. I've been into craft beer for a really long time. I happen to live in Phoenixville, an area that, took the craft beer scene on very early, very close to a brewery called Sly Fox that I used to go to when I graduated from college, and craft beer was kind of just starting then. And then we had places like Victory Brewing, and the Pennsylvania craft beer scene started early and just has exploded. Living in Phoenixville, we have at least a half a dozen craft breweries.
Yeah, amazing breweries.
We're just so lucky that it became a hobby, something I enjoy. And so that's another thing I spend a lot of time doing, is just trying new things, And I just love supporting local small business. I actually was a member of the Chamber of Commerce locally, and just giving back to the community, going to local businesses, and, supporting them is always something I've been really passionate about doing. So, that's a little bit about what I'm into.
So if you want to follow John on Instagram, Someone Say Beer, I'll put the info down here.
Sure.
On Instagram, that's his beer channel. And you can follow and check out all the beers that he's drinking when he checks them in and gives a little bit of a review of what he likes and whatnot. So kind of cool to see all the different local beers that you get, as well as beers from all over the place. So I'll ask you a question about that. Just the beer, what is your go-to preferred beer? What is the style that you like the most?
I mean, I go back and forth. I mean, IPAs, I do like them. I mean, I know they're a little overplayed, and the hazy stuff is people make fun of it. So you got to center yourself. Every once in a while, you got to go back to a lager or a pilsner or something, like a classic style that's been done for hundreds of years, that's just crisp and easy to drink. And you kind of recenter your taste buds, but some of those juicy IPAs, I mean, they really are good and satisfying. But I like funky stuff too. I mean, I love a good farmhouse saison. I mean, there's funkiness. There's a lot of interesting components to it. So, I mean, honestly, I'll drink anything. It's one of the things I haven't had in a really long time is like a stout or a porter. I used to, I went through a phase where I really liked those dark beers, especially in the winter. Yeah. And I just haven't had any interest in picking up like a stout or a porter in a while. I don't know what that is. I'm sure if I had one, I'd enjoy it, but it's just been off my radar for a while. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I usually prefer a little bit more of the juicy IPAs as well. Some stouts. I actually really get into I like some of the fall type beers where you get into the Marzahn and
the German style
the
stuff,
German style stuff,
Oktoberfest,
the Dunkels and stuff like that. I kind of like the flavor profile there. Some of them are a little sweet, some of them whatever. So just something different. But what I am not a huge fan of is you said you like a little bit more of the funky stuff. I'm not a sour fan.
They got tartness. They got some weirdness to them.
I've had 1 or 2 sours where I'm like, okay, these aren't too bad. They're a little tart, but it's not horrible. But then some of them to me taste like straight vinegar. Yeah. And I cannot drink them, so that's not for me.
Yeah.
It's
cool. I mean, that's the thing about it. It's there's just so much variety.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is you can go and sample and try a little bit of everything and kind of hone in what your favorite things are. So
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, everyone will find something they like in the craft beer scene.
Yeah, and then recently too, I've been seeing you post a little bit more bourbon and whiskey, and you've kind of been diving into a little more of the spirits.
Yeah,
so
it may be a natural progression.
Yeah.
When you experiment with craft beers, it seems like a lot of people wind up, enjoying bourbon too. But it's like one of those things. My palate for bourbon's awful. Like I have no idea what I'm doing. I get one bottle that's $30. I get one bottle that's $70, and the 30 is just as good to me. Sometimes better. Like
it's
and
true.
it's like that for me with wine too. I mean, sometimes I'll splurge on a bottle of wine and be disappointed, and then there's other times where I'll find
you get like a
something,
$12 bottle, and you're like, "This is amazing." Yeah.
So I just I'm not a snob in those areas. I really haven't honed in on what I like there, but But yeah, I mean it's. Sometimes, those hazy IPAs that I like, they're heavy. I mean, a 16-ounce beer, it's thick, it's filling. So sometimes just having a little bit of bourbon with a couple ice cubes just to kind of mellow you out at the end of the day is maybe a little easier to consume than like one of those hazy big beers.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I get it. I enjoy that too. So
Indeed.
All right, so we'll dive a little bit into your automotive journey.
Sure.
And we'll start with your first car. Like, what car did you learn to drive on? What was the first car that you had? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think going back, I mean, it was funny. There was a car that we had in our driveway at one time. I think it was a Honda Accord. And I don't even know what year it was because it died before I even had a chance to get my license and drive it. So it was there, but it was something that I never got to enjoy. My first car was a 1984 Colt Vista station wagon.
Yeah. Okay. Was that like the gray and blue?
It was like a blue and white.
Okay, blue and white. Yeah, I kind of remember that car.
A strange vehicle. So you're talking a minivan. It wasn't minivan size. It was a smaller version of a minivan. It was a Dodge vehicle, but it was a Mitsubishi engine actually. So Mitsubishi made the engine. It was a pretty ugly vehicle. When you're new, you're just happy to have a vehicle. It's freedom. It gets you from A to B. It was the type of vehicle you could put a ton of people in. So, with it having a third row, which was a ridiculously small third row, but nobody cared when you were 16 years old. You'd pile 8, 10 people in that vehicle, take it down to the shore, things like that. So it served that purpose well. I mean, I remember when we graduated from high school, like we rode on it and had a bunch of people in it, and it was just like a fun vehicle. And then, of course, I got into car audio pretty big, so a lot of you may not have ever heard of Circuit City.
Yeah, back in the day,
Circuit City closed down. Think of Best Buy, but with commissioned salespeople who were somewhat knowledgeable in the products. And that's what Circuit City was.
Right.
And it closed down years ago. But I used to work at Circuit City, and because of that, like that fed my passion for car audio. I worked in the car audio area. At the time, I was selling cell phones, car alarms. Viper car alarms were huge, and stereo systems. So any car I had from basically my first car on always had modified stereo systems. Bazooka tube was, I think, what I put in the Colt Vista.
Yeah.
And then cars subsequent to that started to get more elaborate setups, amplifiers, subwoofers, all kinds of, speakers and separates and just enhancing the audio.
Well, and in that time too, you got to remember the kind of music, the rap game at that time. The hip hop game was just, I mean,
like
I mean,
it was the glory days of hip hop.
Yeah.
For my opinion, I love '90s hip hop, and it was, you want it.
Yeah, for sure.
Some subwoofers.
Yeah, definitely.
Some bass.
So, what was the first car that like you were proud of that you kind of bought for yourself? Like once you were making a little bit of money and you got something that you kind of, owned it on your own. What was that car?
Well, it's funny. I guess what I bought for myself, so I did have like a Nissan Altima when they first came out in '93. I did some modifications to that. That was probably the first time I did performance mods. I didn't buy that car myself, but performance mods. I mean, in addition to the stereo system, which was, all decked out. And like at the time I put like the headlights that were the cool blue, which flickered when the bass hit because of all the draw on the battery that the amplifiers and everything were running.
Yeah.
That vehicle, I remember I put like a still and exhaust and a cold air intake and a strut tower brace. And I think I changed the spark plug wires to be blue to match and the seatbelt, Nismo seatbelt pads. I mean, it was like, it was period correct.
Yeah.
But I didn't buy that car myself. And then when I first got a job and was making money and wanted to buy a car, it was funny. Then I got into like this. I wanted an SUV. You know, I was looking at Jeep Grand Cherokees and Ford Explorers, and at the time, the Ford Escape had just come out, and I was driving down, I think, like Lancaster Avenue, and I saw the Ford dealership, and I'm like, what is that? It looks smaller than an Explorer. I'd never seen it before, so this was back in probably 99, 2000. So I went and took a look at it, and I'm like, this is nice. It's like smaller than the Explorer, maybe a little more manageable, but it's all-wheel drive, and it caught my eye. So I was thinking about that, and it was like, at the time, it was you could get that for the same price as a used Jeep Grand Cherokee. And it was like, so I could get a used vehicle. I was hearing like, oh, those things are awful. The brakes go really quickly and you're going to go through a ton of brakes and all that sort of thing. And you got to worry about reliability with a Jeep. And I could get a new thing under warranty for roughly the same price.
Yeah.
But then I did not wind up buying the Ford Escape. I wound up getting the Mazda Tribute, which the Mazda Tribute was basically the same thing as the Ford Escape. Same size, same thing. But it was just a little cooler looking. I liked the design better. I liked the rims on this one better. And I kept that car for a really long time. I think I had it for like 12 years.
Yeah.
It's the longest I've ever had a vehicle. You know, I really enjoyed it. And it was not an enthusiast car by any stretch of the imagination, but, you know, it was great. It was good in the winter. I had a little bit more of an off-road tire on it than what it originally came with.
Yeah.
So it handled the snow days well.
That car lasted you a good amount of time, so.
Yeah, and it's the funny thing, like I've always had, like up until, well, we'll get there, I guess, with my latest car, but I always had Japanese. I mean, even when I said like the Colt Vista station wagon was a Mitsubishi engine, I've had, after that I had Nissan Altima. I actually had a Geo Prism, but I think it was basically a Toyota Corolla at the time. It was the same thing as the Corolla.
Yeah.
What else? I mean, and then I had a Toyota Camry. So I've had a couple Camrys actually. Yeah. So I've always kept the Japanese thing going. I mean, reliable, cheap to repair and keep going. So that was what I've done for a really long time. It's kind of my car history.
Yeah. All right. So you talked a little bit about what you modified, obviously, with the Ultima. So we'll move on to like what car has given you the most problems.
You know, I don't know. I knew what I was getting in. So my current car is a BMW, and that's why I'm wearing the BMW shirt and the BMW hat, and you know, it's a joke. But you know, it's not that it's unreliable. It's just that, you know, things go wrong, and when they do, those things cost a lot to repair because I'm not handy, and BMWs are complicated. And a lot of the money spent is taking a lot of stuff out to get to the really cheap part to fix, and then putting all that stuff back in. And it's time, and it's the mechanic's time, and that's where it really adds up. So not to say it's an unreliable car. You know, I can go more into detail what it is, but I've put the most money into it just because BMW repairs are a lot. I mean, I used to go, and if something happened with the Camry and it had to go into the shop, a couple $100, $200-300 tops. If anything happens to the BMW, it's $600, $800, $1,200. So you know, it's expensive, but you know, it's a lot more fun to drive too.
Yeah, and it's a nice car. That way. Yeah, for sure. So last question, as far as your journey goes, are there any cars that you regret getting rid of, or?
No, I really haven't had that many cars. Yeah. So there's nothing that I drove that I was like, man, I wish I had that back. I mean, I could see myself getting rid of the BMW and missing that because, you know, it's a convertible.
Right.
And if I were to get rid of that and move into something else, then I'm not going to maybe have that top-down experience that I enjoy and when the weather's nice and things like that. So I could anticipate regretting getting rid of it, and that's why I'm torn whether I do or don't get rid of it.
Yeah.
But nothing in my past that I've gotten rid of, I've been upset about and no longer having.
Okay. So. All right. That's fair. All right, so we'll dive into a little bit of dream cars.
Oh, sure.
So this is kind of fun, but again, save the ultimate Cargasm car for the end. But when I think about dream cars, there's like TV shows and then movie cars. So let's start with TV. Like when you were growing up, what were the hot cars on TV, or what was there a show that you were like, oh my gosh, that car, like, oh, that's awesome? Well,
I mean, there's always the DeLorean from Back to the Future. I mean, I'm that age where that movie was, you know, current at the time, and I was really, that was such a cool car. I mean, that looked like nothing else out there. The doors went up. It had a time machine. I mean, clearly it was really cool. So that was a car that I think caught everyone my age. You know, caught your eye because it was just different.
Yeah.
It's not something you saw on the roads. And then aside from that, I mean, you looked at something like Miami Vice and the Ferrari Testarossa, and I always loved that car with the vents on the side and just the style of it. So that was always a car I enjoyed seeing on TV. And then I mean, other than that, it's like not a car at all, and nothing that I would ever want to drive. But the A-Team van was. I watched the A-Team so much that black van with the red thing on the side. Loved it. And then BMW goes and makes an SUV. If you saw the XM with the red label edition, which is like this ridiculously expensive EV version. I think, no, it's maybe not EV, but it's ridiculously expensive SUV BMW put out, top of the line model XM. I have no idea what that vehicle is even supposed to do, but they had one that was black with red accents, and people were like, on social media, like putting it up against the A-Team
That's pretty
van,
funny.
like mocking it, basically.
Got it. That's great.
But yeah, so it's just some of the cars from my childhood that I remember fondly.
Anything in particular from a movie that sticks out?
I mean,
you said a DeLorean
and the Fast and Furious stuff. I mean, I
sure.
think like I'm more back to the first movie.
Yeah.
And just seeing like Skylines and Supras and stuff like that. I mean, what cool cars.
Right.
And those cars were current when I went to high school.
Yeah.
Those 90 Japanese sports cars, the Mitsubishi GT, what is it, 3000 GT, and Eclipses with the big wings. The Nissan Z at the time with the twin turbo engine, all those cars, the Supra, of course, those were current vehicles that I was seeing every day when I went to college, and I was seeing, all around. I mean, when we were younger, like you saw those cars, you didn't see Ferraris and Lamborghinis and McLarens. Like that was not normal. Like you didn't see supercars on the road. Whenever you did, it blew your mind. Like I remember, driving down in the main line near Villanova and those areas, and every once in a while you'd see a Ferrari because they have the Ferrari dealership there, and it would blow my mind. There was so few and far between, and now it's like, I don't know that a day goes by that I don't get passed by a supercar in this area. Just about.
Yeah, true.
Or I can go and seek them out if I want to, and see dozens of them at a car show. So. It's changed quite a bit between what you see on the roads today. Yeah.
All right, so what I want to do here is kind of play a little game.
Sure.
So we talked about dream cars, but this would be like your dream collection. I'm going to give you 2 cars.
Okay.
And you have to pick one of them. What's the one that you would want in your collection? So between the 2, I was thinking for you, since you're kind of the German car enthusiast and on the BMW side, I'm going to give you an Audi and a Volkswagen, okay? So I'm going to say Jesse's Jetta.
Okay.
From Fast and the Furious, the original. Or the Audi R8 Iron Man. Now, I know you're a big R8 fan, but if you could have either of those cars, which one would you put in the collection?
I'd got to go with R8 because I just like where the engine's in the rear, and I think that's just supercar.
Yeah.
To me, that's an exotic vehicle.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough.
I would love that as an entry-level exotic.
Nice. Nice. All right, so we're going to wrap it up. We're coming to the end of the show here, and of course it comes down to the ultimate Cargasm car. So what that is the car that if money was no object and you could have it today, whether it's something from way in the past or something that is coming out even that you would want. What is that one car? The ultimate car.
It's tough because you go through and you go, there's Koenigseggs and they're $2 million vehicles and things like that, and Bugattis and all this stuff, and you think about those and you're like, wow, how could you not want that, right? It's millions of dollars. But, it's funny, like I'm wearing all the BMW stuff here and kind of jokingly, but, honestly, I think the BMW M5 CS is an absolute dream car. I went through the stats of it. If I told you the stats and didn't tell you it's a super sedan, you would think it was a super car. I mean, you're talking about a vehicle over 600 horsepower, over 550 torque, 0 to 60s in the mid 2s, like 2.5, 2.6, quarter mile in the 10s, top speed of 190 miles an hour. Like if you hear something like that, you're saying, what is that? A McLaren, a Lamborghini, a Ferrari? Like what type of an exotic sports car are you talking about? Or like a Z06 or something. And it's got back seats.
Right. It's a 4-door
and it's a
sedan, and a good size sedan.
Oh yeah. And what I love about it is it's a if you know car. Like if you know what that vehicle's capable of, hey, I mean, then you know. But most people don't know, and they just see another luxury vehicle, a sedan. So in a way, it's like a sleeper to non-car people. And those performance figures are just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And to think you can get that without sacrificing rear seats, a trunk, things like that. I mean, maybe it's the dad in me speaking that I can put the girls in the back, put some luggage in the trunk, and still beat 99% of the vehicles on the road. Unreal. I mean, so that to me is like, what an ultimate car. So
that's fair. That's a fair
maybe
choice.
It's a little different. It's not all that interesting looking. It could probably sit next to other vehicles at a car show and get passed by. But I think it's really cool.
Yeah. Could be a total sleeper. So.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, there you go, guys. Episode 2 of the Ultimate Cargasm. If you want to follow John on YouTube, JG Whips. Someone Say Beer on Instagram.
Yep.
You also have a JG Whips Instagram as well,
I
car
do.
spotting.
Yeah, I'm just playing around.
So there's also another channel. If you follow him there, you can see some of the cars that he spots while he's out and about. Some interesting things that you've seen recently.
Yeah, always.
And again, Automotive Junkie, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next one. We'll catch you guys then.
See you guys.